We are at the 4th International Conference Teaching Languages and Cultures, TLC2023, where the other plenary speaker was Milica Savić, full professor at the University of Stavanger in Norway. However, we are very proud to say that she studied at the Faculty of Philosophy and started her academic career here with us. So, Milica, we are so happy to greet you here and thank you for coming back in this official capacity, though we privately see each other a lot.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it was really my great pleasure and honor to be the plenary speaker here, where I studied and where I worked and where so much of my life has happened.
The topic of your plenary was if an astronaut were on the moon, young language learners' resources for making sense of L2 pragmatic practices. What is all this about?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. So, what this is all about is an interest that I have developed in the past 7-8 years. I've always been interested in communication and how we use language to communicate and all the different purposes that we can achieve through communication and how we acquire that in a second language. Because that as a language learner, I myself have struggled to become to feel natural in that language. Not just when it comes to, reading and doing formal things, but also informally. And that's where this interest came from. First, I was interested in that with the students, with older learners, but then I became fascinated by how much young learners actually can say about that, how much they think about communication and the ways in which they think about communication completely differently from adults. And that's something that we, for a long time, we have thought wouldn't really be possible or was kind of outside of their reach, but now we're finding out that it is very much within what they can do and what they're aware of. It's just about finding the right ways of asking them questions and talking to them about it. And I just feel there's a huge potential for working with this in very early language learning.
So in the pragmatic area which you research, how is it that young learners, children, how do they learn some basic forms of communication?
That is a very difficult question, and I'm not sure that research would be able to give a very, kind of uniform answer on that. But they actually they rely a lot, and even more than I think we thought before, on all the experiences that they've had in their first language. And so it doesn't seem like they see these things as very different things. So in the second language, they learn the phrases, and I think at the beginning, it's just play. They're repeating things, they're saying, can you please help me, can you do this, that, and so on. But in their minds, it's all one thing, and it's about how you communicate, and it's about how you can get your mom to buy you a PlayStation, and that could be and it's about getting your mom to make you a lasagna when you really want it. Like, these are all examples from what these kids told us about and why it was important to be able to be strategic and use your language strategically. So they do think about these things clearly in their L1 on a daily basis. So just taking that step and making them think about it from a slightly different perspective is definitely something that can be used in very fruitful ways. But we still really don't know that much about it, because how children master other aspects of language we know quite a bit about. But how they master this, thinking about communication more broadly, that is only really at the that's a very young field of research. So there's a lot we need to do for me to be able to answer this question, hopefully in 10 years.
But from what you say now and what you said at the plenary, it seems that children are pretty much absorbent and that they rely pretty much on how we adults use other than our mother tongue or foreign language, and that's how they make transfer and also develop certain ideas, because you mentioned stereotypes in your lecture.
Yes, absolutely. I think one thing that I was fascinated by, I mean, we all have stereotypes, and that's how our brains work, and that's how we make sense of the world. But what we do with them can be very many different things. And what I was fascinated by was that these learners that we talked to, they did adopt these stereotypes that they've heard other places, from their parents or from the public discourse or wherever, but they interpreted them in a very different way. So they did not view things as being super negative, or somebody else who's different from me is, I view them as having some negative characteristics. For them it was all very positive, and it was a challenge to be able to emulate that or talk about that, or so I feel like, yes, they soak in a lot from the environment, but then they also process it and make sense of it together in groups. So it doesn't necessarily, the final product doesn't necessarily have to be what they've been fed from the outside. And I think that that's where the power of the teachers and the classroom lies.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. What we as teachers can do to keep their minds open from their early age?
I think what has worked quite well so far in what I've done, and the little reading that I've done about this that is out there, is really to approach, what we can do is approach them in a way that resonates with them and with their experiences, and try to talk to them in ways that they are used to like within the frameworks that they are used to working within. So not try to kind of give long lectures about the good and the bad and this and that, but really try to start from the bottom and start from what they know, and just ask them open questions, because they're very good at navigating through all of these complexities if they have open questions and a framework to work within, so that it's not very theoretical, that they have something like a hands-on thing that we help them through this reflection process, that we kind of scaffold it through actions or through movement, or because they can indeed come up with very deep thoughts about communication, but that needs to be, they need help because they don't have the vocabulary or the language structures yet in place, and they just don't think in such abstract terms. But it doesn't necessarily mean, or doesn't mean at all, that they're not capable of that. So I think as teachers, it is really just to be aware of the ways in which they communicate, and the ways in what they know, and how we can harness what they know to push them further, to reflect more, and to just become independent thinkers in whichever area. Could be communication, could be other things as well.
Thank you so much, and we wish you a lot of success in your career and life, and hope to have you here more frequently in the future.
Thank you. Yes, I can promise I will be here, or at least as frequently as so far.
Thank you.
And thank you once again for inviting me to the conference.
Thank you.